Let's get a take on all this from our financial guru, Michael Weiner. Michael, welcome back.
Good evening, Brandon. There's so many stories out here right now, and some people are really coming forward. The situation with NVIDIA is, it's almost like I could see this coming about a week ago when there's all this conversation. NVIDIA is going to come out with their numbers. When they come out their numbers, if it's bad, it's going to affect the market. It's going to tear the market apart. We've got to make sure whatever's going to happen with NVIDIA, all of a sudden the numbers come out great, beyond expectation, until somebody, by mistakes, and it's Mr. Robot, found out that NVIDIA's numbers were not necessarily what they were supposed to be. These people in the markets, for the people who listen out there, your financial guys do not work for the market. They work for people that run the market. And understand that they have one goal in mind, is to keep the numbers as much as they can, even if there's no stability and strength behind it. And that's exactly an example of what's gone here. We are now taking that hit literally in the real end of the market because somebody got caught with their fingers in the cookie jar.
Now you're saying an algorithm? Did an algorithm pick this up about NVIDIA?
Correct. An algorithm and robotics through AI. And they were able to do number checking that a human being might take months to do or days to do in a split second.
And what did they find? They found that they weren't what?
They found that they misinterpreted their numbers. They ran their numbers. So the company
is not as profitable as we're being led to believe? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely not. Not only are they not as profitable, but the reserves that they claim they have are not as strong even as Intel. The way Intel does with their net capital, they keep, I think, somewhere around 91%. AMD, about almost 94%. And that other company, the Taiwan Semiconductor, literally is almost 100%. NVIDIA is around in the 70s. But they're made to, given all this credibility, all this AI connection and all the rest of it, and all these people are tying upon that bandwagon. And that bandwagon is almost like the beginning of the internet. We went into the internet and all of a sudden it was going to be great. And if you remember that company that literally bought out Time Warner with Steve Case, it was Time Warner was no longer in existence. And all of a sudden it was the company that Steve Case and his partners had that took over that. And all of a sudden, literally 3 months later, that whole Time Warner deal fell apart. And the AOL, remember AOL?
Yeah, barely.
They're gone. AOL bought Time Warner all on paper. All of those guys who did that deal should be in jail, including Gerald Levine from Time Warner, who got $140 million and then retired. And then they found out 3 months later that AOL was worthless. It didn't have any basis to anything they said they were doing. And Time Warner just literally unraveled the whole thing. It's a fact. Google it.
Wow. The views and opinions of Michael Weiner may not be that of the host of the network.
Exactly.
That's my disclaimer to cover my rear end. But
my disclaimer is we believe that that's a circumstance.
So Mr. Weiner, what are people saying could happen with NVIDIA in 2026? Is there some kind of other report that's going to come out in 2026 that they're going to be required to report that might show this and thus be a bigger forecast of what's to happen to NVIDIA in the future?
Well, I think a lot of the AI, what NVIDIA has done is tied themselves up to a lot of other companies, including Oracle and including the AI company that's all over the place right now. And I guess my comment is that I think some of that will start unraveling itself, and when it does, the numbers will become more evident because those numbers based on their cash flow is not correct. That's what we found out today. That's why the market's down. So how do we move into the future? The problem is President Trump has got us so connected to NVIDIA and what they're doing and tying everything else up with ChatGPT and all this other stuff going on. They're finding out that maybe they're not selling all these chips that they're selling. And I think some of these other companies that are really responsible are going to become more important. And I think that's why you have somebody, I think Paul, I forgot his last name, he just legitimately shorted NVIDIA just because of the fact that he's concerned about that stock drawing back. So
is this why the Fed Reserve Governor Lisa Cook said that we have increased complexity and the interconnections with leveraged firms? So you have to watch this?
Well, I hate to agree with her, but she's absolutely right. The thing that's going on with NVIDIA is very similar to Lucent. And if you remember a company called Enron, that's called Who's Got the Potato. Enron was brilliant in one thing. What they did is they created all these LLCs rolling into each other. There was like 40 or 50 different LLCs. It was almost impossible back in those days for them to be able to run numbers because of the fact that legitimately it was so confusing. If you remember the chairman of Enron, and his name escapes me, the other gentleman went to jail for almost 10 years and then was pardoned eventually. But the chairman killed himself because he was just afraid of how the numbers would come out. And at one time, Enron was a golden child, and so was Lucent Technology. Lucent Technology was at the top of the world at one time, the number one telecommunications company. All done with smoke and mirrors. They're gone. And then another really big one was WorldCom. WorldCom, if you remember them, was legitimately took over and this is what really shows you the games that's played with the government, and that literally was Barack Obama. But WorldCom was a company that took over the commodities industry by storm. Legitimately took over part of the telecommunications industry with the takeover of various different telecommunication companies. And they were a company that had to file, just the way in the up-and-coming AI industry, they had to file what's called a monthly financial report. It's called a focus report. When you're a licensed company, even if you're Merrill Lynch or any of the other ones, you have to file a focus report every 30 days on the financial condition of your company, because hopefully you won't have a bankruptcy that catches everybody by surprise. That's the reason why they do that. Here's a big catch up with that. WorldCom, the chairman of the company, and you can check, he used to be the governor of New Jersey, and then he became the senator after that. He signed the focus report 3 days to 5 days before they went bankrupt, saying they were in great financial shape. And Obama gave him a total pass. They never went after him. They never prosecuted him. Quite honestly, Obama backed him to run for senator. And you'd have to look up the name of the gentleman who was the last chairman, and he was ultimately a governor and a senator of New Jersey, and his name escapes me. And he literally walked away unscathed just because Obama gave him a pass. So there's a communication by a lot of people about what went on today, that there is possibly a similarity at NVIDIA to what went on in Enron, Lucent, and WorldCom. These fake numbers. And there's a concern regarding that, especially when everybody was waiting on the sidelines of the market for 2 weeks. NVIDIA's numbers, that's all you heard, NVIDIA's numbers. Well, they came out, they were great. The market went up this morning, big time. And guess what? It's down almost 400 points at the close. Why? Because that information that you and I know about was made available.
So let's look at this newsletter, the Kosabisasi letter, or whatever it is. Why are markets crashing? Our logical explanation. There's quite literally only one headline that can even be partially blamed for such a sudden market crash. At 11:20 a.m. Eastern Standard, the U.S. Labor Department said the November and October employment situation will be released on December 16th. By this point, the S&P 500 was already down 70 points from its high seen at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard. However, in the 40 minutes after this announcement, the S&P 500 crashed another 120. We now know that the Fed is effectively entering another interest rate decision with an economic data blackout. Markets do not like information asymmetry. But is this really enough to erase nearly $2 trillion in market cap in a matter of minutes? In our view, this was just the switch that shifted sentiment. The reality is that investors are on the edge in this market. When a sudden decline begins, investors rush to the exit because the bubble's popping. That's what they think. This works in the opposite direction as well. When stocks surge, the rally accelerates quickly as capital rotates back into all AI stocks because AI is the next big thing. The reality is that we now live in a market where any headline can drive trillions of dollars of market cap in a matter of minutes for one sole reason. Sentiment is more polarized than ever. You agree with that, Michael?
Totally. I mean, it's just right now what they're doing is it's a juggling act. And that's why we had talked on the show the other day about the repo market in the banks. One of the biggest concerns, and by the way, time out, but the gentleman who was a governor who was the chairman of WorldCom was John Corzine. And then what Obama did not only gave him a pass for fraud, he should have gone to jail because he signed a fraudulent document.
In your opinion,
in my opinion,
add the in my opinion. Yeah. We had that, by the way, just so people know. We had that.
In the industry's opinion of many's, let's just say he stepped a little bit off the line. Obama backed him, and he became the senator after that. So I guess what the heck. We had a lot of interesting senators from New Jersey. But getting back to this. They're having a meeting in jail, I guess. We are looking right now at a gentleman by Mr. Moran, who was appointed recently to the Federal Reserve, and he came out today. He was on television, and he said, "I have a major concern about the stability in the banks and the way they look at the equity positions and their debt positions," which falls into what we talked about, Brandon, when we talked about the repo market. This is the problem, the weakness, the concern that he has.
Now, who is that saying that? Who's saying that?
Moran, M-R-A-N, the guy who was just put into the Federal Reserve. Brilliant guy. And he just came out and said, this is a major concern that is out there right now.
So you're saying a guy at the Federal Reserve is concerned that the banks might be in bad financial condition. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is the way they run their numbers and the way their equity positions are looked upon, he felt needs to be upped and not be so low and leveraged. He felt there needed to be more stability. That's what he's saying, and how they look at their equities, their leveraging, and that ultimately is their lending.
Well, isn't that consistent with you and I talking about our concern with all the trash derivatives these banks are holding?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's some good people like him that are coming forward and saying, we need to stop this. This is exactly what happened in 2008. And the only reason we didn't lose the banking system is because the American people had to support it by the bailouts, everything that went out.
Now, the Federal Reserve chairman, he's done in what, May? When is he done?
April, May.
And who do you think Trump's going to pick to replace him?
I hope Waller. I think he's a sharp guy. Waller is a good man.
Okay.
I think he would be somebody who would be good. We need some truthful people in place because this number crunching that they do, we constantly get surprised with. And I just don't understand why President Trump is allowing some of these people that he has that are moving the numbers the way they have. It's surprising. That gal that they put in over there at the banking system at the Federal Reserve to be second in control, she's got to really crack the whip because some of this stuff is just not making sense. And that's why Jamie Dimon came out a month or two back and talked about the debt and the problems with the debt and the issues at hand right now that makes him very concerned. So, the days ahead are not bright and rosy as everybody think they are. That's why people are concerned. I went to Los Angeles last week, and I was walking. I do a lot of power walking, and I'm walking through the streets there. Besides all the homeless people, every other step you take, which is disgusting, all these stores that are shut down. And I'm not talking in a bad neighborhood. I'm talking in the middle of Brentwood. Every other step, every other door is shut down. Businesses closed everywhere. It's like a third world nation there. I'm amazed. You either have the ultra rich that live behind fences, or even the lower and middle class people there. I just don't get it. The quality of life is just horrific.
Now, what are you hearing as far as the banks being low on reserves and they're going to need a liquidity injection?
That's exactly what Mirren was referring to, and exactly what Cook is talking about. You can't juggle your numbers to make yourself look good vis-a-vis leveraging your assets, and that's through their derivative market. You got to take the paper out. It's like when we talk to people and say, stop owning all your money in paper and own physical gold. And that is because of the fact that paper can be manipulated. And that's exactly, Brandon, what we saw today. When you talk about your side of things and the food side with freeze-dried foods and the need for people to get protected, a picture of food isn't the same thing as food. You can't just buy along with that situation. We saw how fast, when we talk about, and I'm doing a commercial for you, when we talk about freeze-dried food, look what happened within days of COVID.
Yep.
Shelves were empty in the grocery store within days, not weeks, days. So when we're talking about paper assets here financially in these markets, they could change the numbers with a snap of their finger and pick a number. Pick a number, any number. It's like, say, pick a card, any card. And then that's what NVIDIA did today. That's what Enron did. That's what Lucent did. That's what WorldCom did. They made paper numbers happen, and then somebody finally figured it out. And you might say to yourself, boy, it took a long time for them to find out about that with Enron. And that's exactly why today what happened with NVIDIA is sort of upsetting to those guys who are supporting an industry that caught them. The people that they are supporting legitimately, the AI industry and accounting, within seconds found the mistake in the numbers. And, look out for what you support, I guess. But that's why Enron took such a long time. And that's why WorldCom took such a long time. And that's why white-collar crimes and things take time to unravel. I think that whole world's going to change very quickly with AI. They'll be able to do accounting in minutes that took them months.
Wow.
And that's going to be a problem and a control problem for the industry. If somebody's honest in the SEC, maybe some of these billionaires and hedge fund people who are billionaires will start losing some money. Who knows? We'll see.